Becca, so I was thinking about today's episode,
Yep.
and the word that came to my mind for myself is underqualified, because not only do our guest today was just recently voted in as LinkedIn's one of their top 12 disability voices, but you were as well. So
Yeah.
when I saw that news initially, I was super excited for you, Becca. I was so happy.
Thank you.
I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that today, because we haven't talked about it, and I want for those people that aren't aware to be aware. And so tell me a little bit about how the heck did that process come about?
I have really no idea. I'm sure it has something to do with LinkedIn algorithms and Googleitics and all of those other things that I don't understand. But I one day got an email. And when I got the email letting me know that I was part of it, my first reaction was, this is some BS, like this is a scam. Because I've been doing this for 10 years now, right? I've been doing it for a decade, and this is my first list. And so like none of the, all the ones that people do on like Autism Awareness Day, the top 10, whatever to follow, autistic, whatever pages I'm never on that list. I'm never on anybody's list. And so I thought it was a joke. And so I showed it to Antonio and I was like, I think this is real. And then I forwarded it to Isabel and I was like, do you think this is real? And she said, yes, I do. And it's kind of a big deal. So let's do something about it. So yeah, that's genuinely how it came about. A really long time ago, I just really gave up on ever being the kind of person that would fit on people's lists. So I just never think about it. And so I'm glad that it did, though. It felt good to know that I'm making some impact there, that is enough of an impact that it fits an algorithm somewhere, which is nice. And it did allow people to really see my work for a change, which was nice.
This might be a silly question, but did you have to respond to LinkedIn anyway? Like, were they going to put you on the list whether you wanted to or not? Like, what?
Probably just based on timing, but they did. They do ask. They did do it appropriately. I will say, go LinkedIn. they did say, we're going to be releasing this list. You're going to be on it. Can you check your links and those kinds of things like that? And that was, and they engaged very much afterwards too. Like if I had questions and things like that, they really did a nice job, I think, with it. The craziest part of the list, though, and I don't know if Jeremy, well, we'll ask Jeremy when we start talking to him, right? If like it was cool because it's my first list, but also cool because it wasn't an autism list. Does that make sense? It was disability. So I shared the list with some people that I was like, wow, okay. You know what I mean? And that was, and really learned about some people who are doing some things in a field I'm interested in. And so able to connect with those people on the list, and that was really cool. Yeah.
And why the sunglasses today?
Oh yeah, let's talk about it. Okay, sunglasses today. So I came on with Doug, and if we were recording, we should have been recording, we weren't recording. So, I came on and I was squinting, right? Because look at this. This is like, it's stupid bright here right now. And I, on top of it, do not have dark colored eyes. I have light eyes, and I feel like that makes it worse. But anyway, I came on and I was like in my regular glasses, but I had a choice. I could either face this way so that people could see my face, right? But be blind, or face this way where no one could see me in the darkness, but I could be comfortable, right? And so I posed the question to Doug, who then coached me. It was great. Right? Because I would never take anybody else's coaching advice except for Doug's. So Doug said smartly, right? Well, do it for your comfort, right? Which is exactly what I would have coached someone else to do, right? And my comfort is truly, I'm more comfortable with my sunglasses on in most rooms. And so I'm wearing my sunglasses for my comfort. And so I can enjoy today's interview. But this is what we should be doing. And really it was my first instinct, because it shouldn't be so uncomfortable for me to be in some place where I'm private and safe and all of those things, and doing something that I love and care about with people that also understand it and still feel uncomfortable wearing my sunglasses. right? That is some deep-seated, internalized ableism, right? And so it's important. It's important for lots of reasons that I'm wearing them, I guess, bigger than I thought. So yeah, but let's get to it. Let's chit chat about all the things we're going to learn about Jeremy when we get there. So let's welcome him. I welcome you, Jeremy, to Info Dump, and we are excited to get to know you.
Thank you for having me. This is a privilege.
Thank you.
Now, Jeremy, we were just talking about LinkedIn's list of the top 12 disability voices. I believe it's their first ever list of that type. Tell me a little bit about your experience with that.
Very similar. I got an email out of the blue and I had the same reaction, like, is this a scam? I think this is a scam. But so the person who emailed me, I went to their profile and it says they work for LinkedIn. And I'm like, oh, okay, this doesn't look like a scam. And then I looked at the other top voices and made sure that the links that I was being sent were actually LinkedIn links and not a fake site posing as LinkedIn. And it was. And they're like, do you want to be included? You can opt out if you want to. And I'm like, no, I give you permission. And of course, I'm like wording it very specifically of like, I give you permission to use my name on this specific thing, right, just in case.
A big old cover my butt.
Yeah, because we've been burned,
Yeah.
But then it turned out to be a real thing, and I'm just like, wow, people were watching my stuff, and somebody at LinkedIn liked it. So it was a really, really cool surprise.
I'm just curious, like, how long does this list go? So they have the top 12. Like, do they have a top 1,000? Do they have a top 10,000? Like,
I'm sure internally they do.
Right. Well, if Jeremy says no way, this is who we'll put, right?
Yeah. So Jeremy, recently I saw that you have a TV pilot screenplay.
Yes.
It's called Scraped Hope.
Scrapped Hope, yes.
Yes, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm a screenwriter. I went to college, graduated in 2004, and have ever since 7th grade wanted to be a writer-director, working maybe not in Hollywood, but making things that compete with Hollywood. And so I've been writing and directing and all of that ever since 7th grade. And then most recently, I completed a screenplay for the pilot episode of a TV series. And the way this works in the industry is you write the pilot, you don't write the full series. You then pitch the pilot. It gets picked up, hopefully. And then once it gets picked up, they hire a writer's room, and then you all write the whole season together. So I wrote a pilot, and I've always been really into airplanes, so another one of my interests. And many of my stories involve airplanes or flight or something along those lines. Very similar to Hayao Miyazaki, if you're familiar with that director. And so the screenplay itself is basically most of the cast has disabilities. And it's about a group of, it's the old Misfits, the team of Misfits type story, but set in flight. So the world is, I don't have my notes in front of me. I'm trying to to take this huge idea and compress. What's my pitch? I'm really bad at pitching. Okay, so boiling it down, the world is covered in caustic ocean. And so there's these islands, and they need air travel to have society and trade and all those kinds of things. And there's these monstrous fish that live in the ocean. And so our main character is a wheelchair user. She's a pilot who, along with her team, hunts these fish to harvest. They have the fish have pearls in them, and they've figured out a way to use the pearls to power their aircraft. And she wants to be a racer in the I blank on all of this when I'm put on the spot, in the air games. And when she gets there, the racing category is already filled, and she gets stuck in the melee combat category where they have to shoot each other with paintballs. And so she competes, she wins, but then is disqualified. And then she gets picked up on this team of other pilots who have disabilities, who have been discarded by everybody else. And they have to go on to try to win the championship. And so that's the first season. So yeah, I could talk about that for ages and all the details and everything, but
yeah, it's world building for you, right? You
yes,
have to build the whole world. So yeah,
I love world building. I like working in genre because it gives me an opportunity to play with society. I have a sci-fi screenplay where I have all the gender roles reversed and kind of play with that nuance. And so looking at these different things in a genre type movie where the story is outside of our own norm helps us be able to look at some of the cultural norms and go, wait a minute, why do we do that? And I find that really, really enjoyable.
And you were mentioning that you also love airplanes. So I'm someone that's scared of flying. I do it when I need to. So I want to change my thoughts on that topic. So I'm excited to hear from you about what do you love about airplanes?
There's a magic to it. I'm always attracted to the magic of things. My company is named Wondrous Horizons, and I like to find the wonder in both the ordinary world around us and in the worlds I create, where I try to give this sense of wonder and exploration. And when you fly, if you can get over the fear of it, and I get nervous and everything too, there's just something so freeing about it. And you have this perspective. You look down and your problems seem so small, and you see patterns and how society works, and you're up in the sky floating. It's magical. And so I've had the opportunity to fly in single engine propeller airplanes, like 2-seaters and 4-seaters. One of my last jobs was working at Flight Test. It's a YouTube channel, and we got to do all sorts of different things. We did an air-to-air refueling run with the Red Tails, which is a fighter group they fly F-16s. So I'm in a KC-135 tanker hanging out the back where the boom pole's going down and connecting to the F-16 and refueling it in midair. That one also had a very special place for me because my grandfather worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And a lot of the things we found out later in his life, he couldn't talk about because it took 2 people to open the vault doors to the lab because it was all classified. And my grandfather invented the technology that made air-to-air refueling possible. So yeah, it's just this full circle thing that's really cool. So I have that history in my family. And yeah, I just always loved airplanes and flight.
That is very cool. Well, I don't think I'm ready for the 2 or 4 seaters. Let get that out of the way. But
Yeah.
next time I'm flying, I'm going to be thinking about magic because of you, Jeremy. So thanks so much.
All right.
So, you were talking about your screenplay earlier. And one thing that I noticed in preparing to kind of talk to you is that we have something in common that I'm also very interested in disability representation on TV, and you share a lot of media posts about that. So something that an infographic that you created was a test for fair and impartial treatment of disabled characters on TV. Can you talk about the questions you think people should be asking when thinking about those characters?
Yeah, this is actually something that I'm ongoing developing. I do some consultation in terms of disability representation in stories. A good friend of mine is an Amazon bestselling author. Excuse me. I might cough a bit because I still have long COVID. And he was writing a new novel, and he's like, I want to have disabled characters in it, but he's like, I'm not disabled. Can you help me? So we did a whole process of talking about the world building and how he can put in a cultural structure of ableism, and then have his disabled characters and how they fight against that. And then, you know what? I'm going to pull up my notes.
Yeah, please do. I'm wearing my sunglasses.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Where'd the window go? There it is. Pull it over so I can see it. Now I got to find the tab among all the hundreds of them.
If people could see the tabs on our computers, my goodness.
Yeah. Here we go. So yeah, I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, but also cover all the bases. And so I have several different iterations, like the infographic that I originally made. This one is a little more of a in-depth plan for when I am working with content creators or writers or screenwriters, all those kinds of things for stuff. So question number 1 that I ask, does it make the vast majority of those it represents feel seen and heard? And I say the vast majority because we always want to allow for people who have different expressions of the disability, but at the same time, for instance, with autism, it's represented typically in this very narrow way that is, so like you have the autistic savant is the most common. And while that does exist, it's not very equitable because they estimate between 25 and 75 people on the planet are actual true savants. But then when you present autism without saying that in the show, everybody who watches is like, well, all the autistic people have savants of some kind. And it's like, no. So does it make the vast majority feel seen and heard? Number 2, does it influence an equitable view of the greater population of those people with disability whose disability is represented? So something can be accurate, but not equitable. One of these is PTSD, which I also have. And PTSD is 90% of the time presented as military. It's also 90% of the time presented as violent. It may be accurate to that small portion of people, but it's not equitable because it's misrepresented. Number 3, is the representation accurate, and is the representation a common manifestation of the disability? So that builds on top of that last question. Does the representation actively combat ableism bias? So I've had a lot of conversations about the Netflix show Love on the Spectrum, and a lot of people have become more aware of autism about it. And there have been conversations that I've had where people are like, I didn't know it was so big of a spectrum, which is kind of saying something because it still was pretty narrow. And so there were things within the show, creative choices, like the music that they put behind it was this like kind of awkward. And I'm like, the ableism bias is that we're already awkward.
Right.
So you're making that worse instead of actively combating the ableism bias by making it very specifically not awkward and making it romantic.
Right.
So that's that one. And then does the representation avoid harmful disability tropes, which there's a lot of harmful disability tropes. And I have a short list of the major ones. Question number 6, did numerous people with the disability represented have key decision-making positions in production, including at the highest levels of decision-making? So this is the nothing about us without us.
Yeah.
And then also more than one in a room.
Right.
Because Love on the Spectrum did have, as far as I can tell, I've only found one autistic consultant on the show. And as far as I can tell, they didn't have veto power on anything. It was just like, hey, here's some ideas. And then, so yeah, nothing about us without us, more than one in a room. And I've added the nothing about us without us in charge. Because if we don't have veto power,
what's the point?
Then you're checking a box off.
Right.
Number 7, there's only 2 more. Does the content use ableist language or ideas in a way that endorses or encourages them, even indirectly? And so this one can be tricky for writers, and it's something that I've found tricky myself. I wrote a screenplay about an autistic character who's thrust into a spy thriller where he's like, I don't know who I can trust. And so it deals with a lot of the anxiety and all that kind of thing. And I have characters who have ableist worldviews. And I had a sensitivity read done, and I got feedback that is like, well, this character is saying ableist things. You need to change that. I'm like, So the note behind the note here is I need to be able to have ableist characters so that you have conflict and you can work through those, but I must not have addressed the ableist presentations of those ideas in a way that says, this is not okay. I must not have done that enough. So I needed to do some rewriting. And then finding the trickiest balance is not making it become a cinematic TED Talk. Where it has to be entertaining and the audience can't feel like they're being lectured to, and they have to be rooting for the dismantling of the ableism. And so there's a whole lot of education that needs to be done. And it's like, okay, how can I creatively do this so people are just into it? And yeah, you don't have to spoon feed. Yeah. So then the final question that I ask is the content accessible for all? So a common one is like, they'll put the warning that there's strobing effects in it. And I'm like, that's not accessible, because someone who's sensitive to strobing.
Telling me that I can't watch it doesn't help me.
So like as a director, if I choose to have a strobing sequence, it would be pretty simple for me to have an alternate sequence. And then if Netflix or Hulu or whoever were to hire me, I would say, okay, I'm going to have 2 versions. One is for non-photosensitive viewers and the other is for photosensitive viewers. That's accessibility. But I've never seen that done.
Yeah, well, my guess is the answer behind that is money. It probably will cost money to do 2 versions and blah, blah, blah. But I think it's part of, it's like, how to explain how people just miss the boat. Like they just missed the boat on something. And that's what it is, which we're trying to grasp. It's like, you know, I love that you have this autistic character in there, but you can't just throw an autistic character in there, right? The
Right.
autistic person doesn't have to be a nice person. The autistic person could be the villain. Like, it doesn't have to be, right? There are ways that you can include us, or we still maintain our humanity, right? And that's, I think, why when people don't, it feels so disingenuous to those of us watching, right?
Exactly.
It's really, I loved your questions. I think they're quite brilliant. And I think that,
Thank you.
yes, they're the beginning of a conversation that needs to be had in a lot more places than just here, you know?
Yeah.
And now, Jeremy, before we started recording, you were talking about you're going to be involved in a new musical. So
yes,
tell us all about that.
Yeah. So, you know, I've had these passions my whole life of performing, of creating stories, of writing, and I've made it my career. But in making it my career, I also have it less as an outlet. I can't just do it for fun's sake. I'm doing it to, you know, pitch. I'm doing it to get picked up. I'm doing, you know, there's always this bigger goal attached that puts pressure on. And in 2019, I started taking acting classes at the Hood School of Acting here in Cleveland, and they're fabulous. And I loved it so much because I'm meeting new people. I'm able to express myself authentically, and I'm able to have fun for fun's sake. I was just taking acting for myself. And it was indirectly also making me a better writer and director. And when the pandemic hit, they had to close the location nearest me. They got a new location, which is wonderful, but it's like an hour and a 20-minute drive for me, and it isn't really doable. And I actually ran into a friend of mine going on my morning walk that I hadn't seen in over a decade. And she and I were in the musical schools together in high school. And I'm like, oh, hey, how are you? And then the next week, she posted that our local community theater, one of them, there's many in my area, which is awesome, was casting for a couple of small roles in the musical The Hello Girls, which is about the World War I phone operators who were like on the battlefield connecting battlefield calls. It's a really cool story. And I'm like, oh, I should do that. If I get the role, it'll be small, so it's like a stepping back into it, because it's been 22 years since I've done a musical. And so Monday, I went to the audition, and they're like, congratulations, you have the part, rehearsals now.
Yay.
And it was so wonderful. And I knew I missed it, but I didn't know how bad I had missed it. In college, I was in the Singing Men of Ohio, which was also wonderful. And it's to be able to be a voice in a harmony that makes something that, like, I can't express how it's that autistic joy. And I'm sure that other people who aren't autistic also feel that joy and the tingles and stuff, but I know I feel it as an autistic person, so maybe the volume's cranked up to 10, which is nice for the joy part of it. And so I'm sitting there, it's my first rehearsal, and it was, so the women were rehearsing last week, and then it was the men and women for the first time on Monday. And we're just doing read-throughs, and, you know, it's always wobbly at first, and then something would click, and it'd just be like, oh my gosh, that's me, a part of this. Look at what we did together. And that's what I love about film too, the collaborative process, which a lot of people are like, oh, autistic people, they're all just by themselves and don't want to talk to, and it's like,
not all of us.
A little, sure, sometimes, but like, I'm also very sociable.
Right.
I'm an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert. I'm an ambivert.
Right. I mean, I think it's like, well, because, okay, so I just watched joy like explode from your body talking about this, right? And so for me, I love that because I think people don't get to see our joy often because we're always so busy trying to do things for a purpose, right? And so I love that this for you is reclaiming joy, right? And what I feel like happened for you is like, oh, wow, I have not had joy like for a long time, right?
Yes.
It was like pure joy. Right, in its essence. And that is what I, as a coach, I think we all need to get re-addicted to that situation.
Yes.
Right.
And so, I found something.
Right. Like I can do what I love and what I'm good at for work, but I can also, there's space in my life to do things just for fun. Right. And just because I enjoy it. And so I love so much that you're going on to do this. And I feel like, who knows, maybe it will shift what you're doing. Maybe you'll be writing musicals instead of writing screenplays.
I have always wanted to direct a musical in film, but I don't write music. Right. So I would love to bring a bunch of people together and do that. That would be amazing. And I've put some feelers out before and it's never come together. So
all right, well,
I'm literally
a group right now. Yeah. The three of us are saying, if you are a musician, if you are a composer, if you love musical theater and you want to be involved in it, come find your people. Jeremy's going to spearhead it. He will help write it. You guys will make magic, but go find each other, right? Find him. He's on social media all over the place. Go follow him.
And Jeremy, you probably don't realize this, but I live in the Cleveland area, so I know a lot.
Oh, you do?
I do, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So maybe there's a way we could talk afterwards and see if we can work together and, you know, to, I know a lot of people, autistic folks in the area, so, you know, a lot would be very interested in being in a musical.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be great, right? And then everybody's doing it because they just darn love it. And when you do it that way, everything just comes out so brilliant, right?
and now that I'm doing this, knowing that I'm autistic, because I didn't until a year ago, you know, I'm 40 and finding out I'm autistic and looking back on like the high school musicals and stuff, but now I'm in rehearsals and go, oh, some of my biggest skills that I have always been praised for is because of my autistic traits. Like I'm doing echolalia all day of my duet. I pretty much have my duet memorized by the next day.
Right.
And then I'm also seeing a little bit of some of the struggles that I've had. Like my dyslexia is coming in and I'm going, oh, I'm switching the words around here, or I'm switching the notes around here. And reading music has always been a little challenging for me. I kind of like, okay, it's going up a little, it's around there. Despite being brought up in a family that reading music was taught at home and all this kind of stuff. It never clicked for me. But yeah, just like, I'm able to, I have a script. I know how I'm supposed to act in this situation. And then I can fully be myself while saying the lines that I've memorized and while singing the songs, but I can express myself naturally as myself in this character. And then I get to kind of experience what neurotypical relationships are like because I know what to say when you say something.
Right. And it's so amazing. It's so funny, but it's so scripted, right? That's the other piece. Like their conversations are so scripted to me that it's funny that they tell us that we're like, oh, you script your conversations? Oh yeah, but you guys really script your conversations. Like,
where's your creativity, man?
Yeah. I am so excited for you. Like I've truly enjoyed watching your social media, but I am more excited to see how the musical goes for you and what happens out of it. And I hope that you and Doug will connect and make something happen. I sense it. I know it. So I hope that will happen for you guys, because why else would you both be in Cleveland right now in this moment? Okay, so next question, Doug. I don't want to keep you off your
question. So Jeremy, on each episode, we always end with a 11 question questionnaire.
All right.
Called Inside the Autistic Studio. So first question is, what are your pronouns?
Any.
And,
Pick one. I'll respond as long as I know you're talking to me.
and what's your preferred STEM?
Ooh, that's a good one. Singing. Yeah, singing and dancing.
And what's your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Classic, can be used in so many different ways.
Yes.
It is, but when every person who picks it, when they say it and it's truly their favorite, you can feel it. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? Okay, so it's
The
really
joy of
like
it
he
all.
uses it.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Who do you love and what are you doing about it?
Who do I love? Are we talking romantic or anything?
Could be anything. Yeah, doesn't have to be romantic, but it could be.
I love my family. I love my friends. There's too many people to love, which reminds me of a song. But yeah, I love people. I love interacting with people, and what I'm doing about it is that I try to interact with people in ways that fill them up, that is also equitable for me, and that it's creating a harmony together where we create music even when we're not singing.
And the next two are fill in the blank. You may be neurotypical if.
I'm blanking on that one. If you know what to say.
That's a good answer.
And the next one, you may be autistic
if you're friends with me.
What's something you want to learn to do or be better at?
Everything. Like yeah, I'm always learning that there's new things that I want to learn. So I want to learn languages. I want to learn to be a pilot. I want to learn to skateboard. I want to do it all. I love learning.
What autistic social media accounts should people be paying attention to?
Camps? Is that what you said?
Accounts.
Oh, accounts. That makes more sense. Gotcha. Wow, there's a lot. And I can't remember names. I can picture them in my mind. If I could project an image of what I'm thinking, life would be so much better.
Like, I know your profile picture person.
Yeah. It's like, but I thought you were friends. We are. I just don't know their name. Okay. I was having a conversation once with the guy who was the best friend or the best man at my wedding. Mm-hmm. And I could not think of his name for the whole day. I'm like, what? Oh my gosh, we've been best friends for years. What is your name? So yeah, I'm going to my TikTok now, going to my following. I don't know how you say their username. AEGOAEGYO. The next one is Fine Words Weave. The Sound of the Forest. Kathy Chaotic. I mean, there's a bunch. Likely Salty. Yeah. Oh, there's one that I want to mention. Kate. I think it might be Kate Lethargy. Kate Lethargy. Yeah. Cool. So, yeah. And of course, you two.
Oh, right.
but everybody's already listening to you, so they already know how cool you are.
Yeah, we want to mention others so people can learn more about them. What's one thing in your routine you couldn't possibly live without?
Sleep, but I live without it a lot. like this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one thing, like I have a new routine now with rehearsals. And so my entire sleep routine is just shot as I'm acclimating to the new rehearsal
every time,
routine.
right? It's a transition. It's just another transition, right? Smaller increments.
And I'm having this new emotion that I have to now process through. So yeah.
I'm excited for you. I think big good things are coming.
Yes.
Right? When we follow that joy in that way, it's usually because you're on the right path. So yeah.
Dog, cat, or must I choose?
What was the last one?
Or must I choose?
Oh, must I choose?
Yeah.
So I grew up a dog person. I married into cats and did not like cats at first. Me and Slater butted heads quite a bit, partially because I moved into his territory. He's like, that's my couch. What are you doing in my couch? But we learned each other's behavioral patterns. And I recently saw a post, my wife shared it with me, of how you might be autistic if you're a cat person, because it takes time to learn their behavior. But then once you understand their body language and everything, you're like, I can read this. And like cats are autistic. I'm like, that's cool. So I have definitely become a cat person. I'm still definitely a dog person. We don't have a dog because the whole letting them out all the time and going on vacation makes it a little too complicated, but I love both.
And the last question, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but what does autistic joy mean to you?
That tingly rush of it. I get this electrical feeling that's bad, but then the joy feeling is like everything relaxes. The muscles just like, you're free and you're flying. Yeah.
I love that. That was a really good description. Your description was probably the closest to my experience, I think.
Cool.
And I've never been able to like say it, figure it out. So I like that.
Thank you.
All right. Are we done, Doug?
We're done.
Already?
That's it.
This has been so much fun.
Thank you so much for coming. What a great conversation. I'm so excited to see what happens for you. And Doug, I'm going to let you guys talk after we hang up. You have to email immediately. I feel it. I sense it. My vibes are all out. Cool. So I hope that you guys will do great things together, and maybe we'll have you back some other time when you're doing some new things.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.